So essentially, you might have guessed, we really want a standard deviation to be small as possible because it tells us that the data is really truly centered about the mean. And that's kind of goes back to lesson 4.5 when we introduced our measures of center. And I kind of keep referring people when I'm grading your 4.4 worksheet that, or your 4.5 worksheet, that I want you to go back to page 435, which on my lesson videos is where I discussed how do we decide what is the best measure of center? And I went further than what our workbook has asked you to do, because in our stats class, we spent quite a bit of time on this topic, but I want to make sure that you all are exposed to it as well. It's not just like, oh, here's the mean, here's the median, here's the mode, here's the mid-range. We discussed a little bit in the beginning of 4.5, the idea that really big numbers or really small numbers really affect the mean. Okay, and the median is not affected by the really big or really small numbers because the median is just the center of the data. Okay, so you can have the center of the data at the same spot for the median and the mean, but the median is literally the middle, where the mean is just where it's being pulled. So if you have really low data points, it's being pulled to a smaller end. If you have a few really high data points, it's going to be pulled to the higher end. So we say that the median is resistant, just kind of like we say that if you have a strong immune system right now, you could be resistant to COVID, right? So resistant means that it's not affected by, if much at all, by very, very small numbers or very, very big numbers. And that's why I want you to make a comment about that on your 4.5 worksheet. I want to make sure that you're just acknowledging that the mean, when I ask what is your best measure of average, you're not just like, oh, reciting, oh yeah, it's the mean. I just told you that up above. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to kind of think about, are my mean and my median pretty close together? And you can see that up in your stem and leaf plot. And you can also see that in your frequency distribution. And you can also see that in your histogram, because they all should kind of be mirroring each other. I ended up using the same group or the same width for each of those items. And so if your mean and your median are about the same, it should kind of look like this curve that you're going to see in 4.7. And if it kind of looks like this curve where it kind of looks symmetrical like this, maybe, where my nose is kind of in the middle here, it's symmetrical, then we would say that the mean is probably your best measure of center. If it looks like this, where it's skewed one way or it's skewed this way, your data is skewed this way, which is when you compare your mean and your median, and your mean is either much greater than your median or your mean is much lower than your median. That's when you would say your data is skewed one direction or the other, and your median is your best measure of center because you have very small values that are pulling in one direction, or you have very large values that are pulling it in the other direction. I hope that clears things up a little bit.